Good evening and welcome to The Law of the People and Governance here on Spectrum Television. This is a program that talks about government policies and, of course, how it affects the people. Well, see you, so do stay tuned. We'll come right back. All right, welcome back. So today we'll take a look at some of the reports we have for today, trending politically, and of course, coming from Ogun State, Osun State rather. The Osun State Governor Ademola Adeleke yesterday inaugurated the State Executive Council with a warning that any commissioner or public official that indulges in corrupt commissioners and permanent secretaries during their swearing in at the government secretariat in Oshobo said he would be doubling as commissioner for works, while his deputy Kola Adeosi would oversee the Ministry of Sport, and also have Morufu Dele Ayanfe, Ministry of Science, Information and Communication Technology. Away from that, Moshood Olagunju, Ministry of Youth Affairs, Adenike Folashade Adeleke, Ministry of Federal Affairs, Dosu Babatunde, Ministry of Local Government and Chieftaincy Affairs, Alfred Sessan Oyedele, Ministry of Transport, Reverend Bumi Janyo, Ministry of Commerce and Industry. Also had George Alabi, Ministry of Land and Physical Planning, and of course Shola Ogunbile, Ministry of Finance, amongst all the people that were appointed as well. He said the new commissioners are a product of stakeholders' choices, and also added that they are qualified and appointed based on merit. Well, according to his words, he says, I say a very responsive government that listens to, I seek rather, a very must be real service to the people. He also said, I value honesty and integrity in public service. You must be above board. Corrupt conduct will be heavily sanctioned. He says, I love thinking out of the box in governance. As political heads of your ministries, you have to be very innovative, generate and implement new ideas in lines and of course times of national economic emergency. He says, I love achieving much with little resources. As well, he says, as well as you must work as a team with a common goal to make a difference in the lives of our people. Above all, my leadership is about the process and rule of law. You must not cut corners. I will not compromise transparency and accountability. Well, the new commissioners promised to key into the 5-point agenda of the Adeleke-led administration, saying that they would be loyal and avoid shady deals. I'm looking at a governor that doubles as the commissioner for works, and of course also doubles as the governor as well. Well, if you ask for my opinion, I would say if the office doesn't get to pay him, it would be a double honor. And of course, I was having conversation with someone. I remember the past president of Nigeria, the former immediate past president, President Muhammadu Buhari, who doubled as Minister for Petroleum as well. And then we saw that particular sector have one problem to the other. I think, you know, a problem that we are still trying to solve till today. And then we see a governor who comes to double as Commissioner for Works. And one of the major things you get to know the government is working when you step into a state is road construction, major projects. So having the governor double as a Commissioner for Works, I think it will make him sit up and of course wants to work hard, of course, to sport. Well, let's just watch how this administration comes to play. I know that Adeleke is one dramatic governor. Of course, it's he was one time regarded as the dancing senator, one dramatic governor that you know, likes to do things in style. So, well, we are here for Osun State, and of course, we are watching their delegate-led administration and what it has for the people of Osun State as well. All right, away from that, let's head to the next report we have for today. Coming from the House of Representatives, the Speaker of the House, Tajuddin Abbas, said on Saturday in Zaria, Kaduna State, that the 10th National Assembly would create a constitutional role for traditional rulers in the country. And the Speaker stated this when he paid homage to the Emir of Zazzau, Ambassador Ahmed Bomali. The majority of members of the current House Representatives understood the importance of the traditional institution in the country, if you ask me. And of course, he noted that members would do the needful to ensure a role was created for the traditional rulers in the Constitution. In the words of the Speaker, he said, "I am aware that about 3 years ago, there was a paper by the Traditional Rulers Council across the 6 geopolitical zones where they clearly stated how they want the traditional institutions to function in this present dispensation." It says, "We thank God that today your son is the Speaker of the House of Representatives and in the position to revisit the position of the traditional rulers." It says, "I want to assure you today that my colleagues and I, who are from traditional ruling houses and others who share similar statement, will go back and look at the position paper written by the traditional leaders in order to ensure that the traditional institution has a place in his this current political dispensation." It says, "We will work assiduously with the various state houses of assembly in order to ensure that the glory of the traditional institution is restored." And talked about over 70 members of the House of Representatives to receive their blessings and the blessing of other traditional rulers and Nigerians on the need to unite Nigerians for the progress and development of the country. And says, "We will from time to time seek your advice because we in government are like football players on the pitch who are bound to make mistakes." Well, in the remarks of the Emir of Zazzau, he said the request for roles for traditional rulers in the Constitution was not an attempt to create another tier of government. Well, he said it had nothing to say than, you know, thank you for the blessings he had bestowed on the emirate. The emirate had produced a reasonable percentage of prominent Nigerians, from the head of state, talking about General Yakubu Gowon, Vice President Namadi Sambo, several ministers, the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, and now the Speaker of the House of Representatives. And he said the role of the traditional institution cannot be overemphasized. The traditional institution has played important roles from the First Republic, the Second Republic, and even today. He says, "I am aware that the majority of members here have direct or indirect relationships with the traditional rulers." I also say what is surprising us is that people as their stumbling blocks. Up until now, we are really shocked as traditional rulers why they behave like that. But what they fail to understand is that the traditional institution has come to stay, whether we are alive or not. Whatever and wherever you go, you will still come back to us, which is true. It says we are aware that the fear of most of these politicians is that we want to create another tier of government. I speak on behalf of other traditional rulers, the Sultan of Sokoto, Shehu of Borno, and other traditional rulers. We discussed this issue of traditional rulers extensively. They said they went to Abuja, met with the former president, Senate President, Speaker of the House of Reps, and they presented their position under the chairmanship of Emir of Lafia, who is a former Supreme Court judge with experience. They drafted their position and submitted it to the former Senate President, and they were surprised that the bill was abandoned. Well, this is one of the issues we'll get to discuss today, the importance of having the traditional rulers become part of course, having a constitutional role in the Tinubu-led administration, not just his administration, but in governance generally. And of course, what the younger generation stand to gain, because first, they are the younger generations when it comes to where the Traditional Rulers Council are. Okay, so away from that, let's get to the third report before we bring up our guest for today. We're talking about price controls and, of course, price control and regulation here in Nigeria. Talking about price control, it refers to the legal minimum or maximum prices set for specified goods. And price controls are normally mandated by the government in the free market. So they are usually implemented as a means of direct economic intervention, of course, to manage the affordability of certain goods and services more affordable. Price control can often lead to disruptions in the market, losses for producers, and of course, noticeable change in quality as well. Some things to note about price control is that price control are government mandated minimum or maximum prices set for specific goods and services. Price controls are put in place to manage the affordability of goods and services in the market. And minimums are called price floors, while the maximums are called price ceilings. And these controls are only effective on an extremely short-term basis. Over the long term, price controls can lead to problems such as shortages, rationing, inferior product quality, and of course illegal markets as well. And of course, talking about understanding price controls are a form of government mandated economic intervention. So they are meant to make things more affordable for consumers and are also commonly used to help steer the economy in a certain direction, opposite to prices set by market forces, which are determined by producers because of supply and demand. So price controls are commonly imposed on consumer staples. So like there are essential items such as food or even energy products. For instance, price caps are referred to price ceilings. Already I talked about that. There are reasons for price controls. May be affordability and of course economic stability, and they may have the opposite effect over a long-term price controls. And of course, we're going to look at price control and regulations as it concerns, fuel subsidy in the market. You would agree with me that ever since subsidy was being removed from premium motor spirit, popularly called petrol, Nigerians have had to cry over certain things. Cost of living generally and a whole lot of things have actually increased. Now, people are clamoring and of course calling for the government to regulate prices in the market, because there are some people who already had these goods stocked in their and it doubles as time goes on. So Nigerians have had to clamor for the government to regulate prices of goods and services in order to allow the market stay stable and of course people be able to afford to get things for themselves. All right, we'll talk more on this price regulation and of course control here in Nigeria when we come back, and we'll come with our guests. So do stay tuned. We'll come right back.
Nigerian police, which is the only one allowed by gross level. Our governors have to share police powers with the president as stipulated by the constitution. We do not have a federal government police force. We have the Nigerian police force, which shall be administered, organized, and supervised by the Nigerian
for people who should be invited here for examination. My lord, if we cannot find those who literally murdered Abiola, who are those people who could be said to be the beneficiaries of the death of Abiola?
Rogers has linked you with some of the killings he did.
He never did.
he linked you with the attempted murder of Hebrew.
He did not.
My lord, the matters counsel is leading the evidence in our matters.
Is this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my lord, but we can't be talking about cases which are in court,
Is
my lord.
this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my lord. These cases are in court, my lord. I'm just reminding your lordship.
My lord, sorry, my lord, I think I'll be in cross-examination.
Legally Speaking, a program that deals with legal issues and questions we face as citizens of this amazing country, Nigeria. Legally Speaking. Join us every
Friday from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m.
for Legally Speaking.
All right, welcome back. It's still the program, The Law of the People and Governance here on Spectrum Television, and I am still your host, Rachel David White. So right about now, we're being joined via audio call by a socio-political analyst in the person of Peter Paulinus. Good evening, Mr. Paulinus. Welcome to the show.
Good evening, SpectrumTv.
All right, so let me ask, how you doing? Can you hear me?
Hello.
Yeah, I'm asking, how you doing? I hope the hike in fuel price has no effect on you.
Well, everything is fine. Everything is fine.
So you're not bothered about
we
the
are
hike in
just-
fuel price. It doesn't have any effect on you then?
Well, as a Nigerian, there's no how I will not feel. There's still hope that in the course of the policy performance and the desired change will be obtained. So that's the consolation for the negative impact is having right away.
Okay, so let's get into the business of the day before we talk about price control and regulation. Of course, that as it concerns the House of Representatives, rather, there has been a call, or there was a call sometime by the Traditional Rulers Council on the Senate to, of course, give them a constitutional role. According to them, the Senate felt they were asking for another tier of government, which they have proven them wrong. And then this administration that has, of course, Senator Godswill Obota-Pabio as the Senate president, has given them a chance, of course, has proposed that and had vowed as a matter of, what is your take on this? Do you think that is necessary?
Well, it is. It is quite necessary and it is long expected, though that will not be totally new, because as you could recall, in the post-colonial era, the traditional rulers then played a whole lot of role in the administration of the
course.
government, how be it at the local government level. You could recall during the era of the Native Authority, especially down there in the administration of the local government. So it's not something that is totally new, but the problem has been the military interference in the politics of Nigeria that took place from 1966 down to 76 or thereabouts, and that brought about a whole lot of distortion in our constitution and policy. And you know, the military with their centralized form of government. So that was where the whole point in time, the National Assembly and being its feet to assign a constitutional role to the traditional rulers. For me, I feel it's a welcome development, and but not just talking about assigning the rule, because as we discussed some time ago, the problem of Nigeria is not that of lack of institutions of government or policies of government, but it has always been the mindset of or what they normally call the Nigerian factor. So it is one thing to say that the traditional ruler should be given constitutional responsibility, and it is another thing to allow the traditional ruler to perform the sole assigned constitutional responsibility.
Now, talking about constitutional responsibility. Now, before independence and perhaps, you know, a few years after the traditional rulers played a conventional role, right, in governance, and of course, I would say maybe after the military coup that, you know, abolished their role completely. Even in the 1999 constitution that we currently operate, there is no place that gives the constitutional, I would say, legal backing or provision for the traditional rulers to have a constitutional role. Or do you see? Let me leave it at that.
Well, that has been the challenge. That has been the problem. Because in a situation whereby you have an institution like the traditional institution without a well-prescribed responsibilities or assignment as backed up with the law, conflicts of rules. Are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
So currently we are having a situation where there is some level of so to say. So if the lawmakers didn't fit to actually describe and prescribe what should be the functions, the jurisdictions, and the powers and responsibilities of the traditional rulers, it will help to spell out what they are really there for. And for me, I think it will also cut the abuses that we have noticed in the traditional institutions, where at some extent government tends to use them as their errand boys or what have you. So giving them constitutional responsibilities and role, take care of all that, and we will create a situation whereby each chair of government or each actor in government and this institution of people will now know what is expected of them at time.
Okay, let me ask, what is the fear that if traditional, because they had written a letter explaining their position to the then administration before now, and of course the Senate president had gone through it, and according to them it was abandoned. What do you think could have been their fear? Or would maybe do you think they may have thing?
Use of power, I want to believe their fear should be that to some extent it will affect their level of influence, to some extent it will affect their level of relevance in the society, their level of relevance in the polity. And that is exactly what has been playing out between the state government and the local government, where the state government has not actually allowed the local government to do it or operate in the way it should. So I feel that must have been some of the president's fears, they must have not. But it's high time that the government and we citizens should rise to actually see to the fact that the traditional institutions are given constitutional roles and responsibility.
Okay, one more question. I know constitutional roles. What do you think? Talking about constitutional roles, what do you think the paramount roles of traditional rulers should be in governance?
Like today, that security has been a problem in the country. I want to believe if the traditional institution is empowered financially and otherwise, they should be able to, like, because as we all know, every crime, every global challenge takes place in a locality, takes place in a community. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm
So by
here.
the time the traditional rulers are empowered to actually see how they can take charge of security situations in their various domains, that will actually help to solve it in the community, and the traditional rulers or the village head, if it has to do with the southern part of the country, will have to work or will have to write to the local government chairman and the local government chairman or the DPO and all that. So if they are actually empowered, there should be some things that they should actually do before the government can actually take over. So security function is one aspect that the traditional rulers can carry out, and of course, that has to do with the maintenance of law and order, and also empowering the traditional rulers to also see to the maintenance of the various governmental properties that we have in our
I think
society.
that's one of the
We
most
actually-
vital role. That should be number one.
yeah, will actually help to curb the devastation and vandalization of government amenities and infrastructures in the various communities. Let me tell you, it is because the traditional rulers or the people are not actually given a part to play in government. That is why every government property, every government amenity is seen as government property and not
Okay,
actually the people's
I think it's your. Thank God you completed it well. So when you said every government property, now you should change every people's property that the government has provided for the people is termed government property. So they tend to vandalize.
Yes, I want to, because there is a missing link between the government and the people. So by the time, don't forget that the traditional rulers, they are the custodians of the people and custom. They are the custodians of the people culture. They are the closest set of leadership of government to the people and that. So by the time they are given that responsibility, whatever is happening in that domain, be it at community level or what have you, the people will not know that they are part and parcel of communities that is cited in their domain, and that will help to reduce the tension or the rate of vandalization that we have been witnessing in our community over time.
Okay, thank you so much, Nigeria. Of course, Nigeria has been priding to operate an open market, but why do you think price control seems to be a burning issue today in Nigeria? Again.
Well, for me, if you ask me, I would say before we can actually talk about price control, what we should ask are a command economy or the planned economy.
A capitalist economy.
Are you with me?
I'm with you.
A situation where the government, let's take the petroleum subsector of Nigeria for a case study. You know, like as we all know, the government of the day is talking about deregulation. Are you with me? And what that actually portrays. So if government is looking towards a free market economy where the market forces of demand and supply actually regulate and determine the pricing mechanism of goods and services, then it will be a mix-up under that condition to talk about price control. Are you there?
Yes,
so we
I
must
am.
be able to draw a demarcation. What are we looking at? What are we operating? What kind of economy? Are we operating a mixed economy where there should be an interplay between the private sector and the government? And to what extent does the government or which sector the government actually wants to play a role? So that we will now understand the potential for price mechanism and what have you. Then if it is a free economy, it is high time we the citizens should know that government should have less hand if no harms at all in determining the prices of goods and services. So before I actually come to the level of quality review or what have you, we should first and foremost understand the kind of economy we are operating. I know for the petroleum sector, for an instance, Nigerians have been so used to government control sector in this direction. They have been so used to a situation where government determines the price, where a free market economy in this sector. Then Nigerians should understand that it is no longer the responsibility of government to regulate the price. What government should be to do at this point in time is to create an enabling environment in terms of infrastructure provision. Are you there?
I'm
In
with you.
sectors, provision of basic amenities that will help businesses to thrive.
Okay.
So you cannot have government regulating an economy, then at the same time you also want to have a free economy. I think that will lead to chaos, that will lead to conflict, that will lead to confusion, and that has been the challenge of Nigeria. That has been the problem of Nigeria as a country where citizens don't ask questions. Us is a country where citizens don't hold leadership accountable for their actions, where citizens don't find out, where citizens don't ask government, what are you doing? Are you actually looking at free economy? It will be sufficient, it will be sensible for us to now talk about price policy and control mechanism in the production of our goods and rendering of services.
Okay, Paulinus, Nigeria actually operates a capitalist economy, and of course, if the government does not step in to probably, play a role where they can actually regulate prices, okay, backing, when it comes to price control and regulation, do you think it's going to work? And then why are we still lagging behind in this area?
I want to agree with you that there should be legislation in place, and there should be a robust model laws that will regulate the conduct of key players in whatever sector we are looking at. So there's no argument about that. There's no argument about that. But the fact that government should bring about some legislation and should bring about some legal framework to guide the operations and the activities of private players does not give government the impetus to decide how much goods to be sold in a free
okay. Let me ask. Allow it to be driven or dictated by our market forces.
Well, the answer to that question so much depends on the type of economy that we are operating. For an instance, the government has come up to say, the government of Senator Bola Ahmed Tinubu has come up to say, look, there is no longer subsidy in petroleum products. What that means is that that sector is now deregulated. So to that very extent, we should not expect government to fix prices. That would be abnormal.
Okay.
Agree with me.
Yeah.
But in sectors where there is a planned economy, or in sectors where command economy, that is state control economy, is operational, then we expect government to set the pricing mechanism in operations to guide the citizens, to guide the key players in the sector.
Okay, don't you think that if governments, through policies, making policies, maybe not coming out, but actually making some policies, just like the removal of fuel subsidy that has already not just affected fuel, but every other product? What do you think?
I'm not a support of that sort of thought, because as an entrepreneur, as a business person myself, I feel it should be some amount of injustice for government to come out to say a cup of garri or whatever commodity should be sold at a certain price without taking into cognizance the investment or the inputs that have been put in place to produce that goods or service. Are you with me? So until government understands or aids the investment or gives some form of aid, and that is where subsidy comes to play. Government can only determine or a price or regulate the price in a sector that government is selling like 150 naira, because you cannot do business at a loss. Do you understand my point?
Yes.
Then government now come out to say, okay, we all know ideally the cost of producing your good or your service is 150 naira. Now, look, I want you to sell it at 100 naira. Let me take the responsibility, or let me bear the operational cost of 50 naira. Are you with me?
That's
So
government
if
subsidizing Gary now.
If government does that, then there is every justification for it to not only regulate the prices of such goods. In a situation where government has not done that, in a situation where government is not providing an enabling environment, in a situation where an individual is allowed to generate his or her own power for his or her factory and what have you, then government is sitting somewhere and said, look, after you must have gone through all this, after you must have bought a fuel at 650 naira to power, say like your salon and all that, I want you to be doing a social price, then government will not be fair to the business people, and that will make the business environment not to be friendly to investors. And that is why investors leave a country, leave an environment, leave an economy where they find the business environment not to be friendly, where they find policies of government to be hostile to their operations and what have you. So it's a two-way thing, and it's something that and this calls for the kind of people that are saddled with the responsibility of formulating government policies, because they have to be people that are vested, people that are realistic, people that know the practical things that are obtainable in each factor, in each subsector of the economy. Do you understand my point?
Yes, I do.
So it's something that is all involving. It's something that is all involving. It's something that calls for an in-depth understanding of what is obtainable in such an booming sector.
Okay, now people have been, culpable of indiscriminate increase in prices of.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I mean,
okay.
For
example, right? I talked about some people who may be commercial farmers who decide to bring their commodities to the market and just double up the price because there is hike in fuel price. And then some of them have unions. If you don't sell it at this price, don't come to this market, or don't sell this commodity, do another one. So everybody selling this particular commodity belongs to this union, and they have just doubled the price. Incessant and indiscriminate excess in increase in prices of commodities. How can this be curtailed?
Well, unionization of some sectors is actually some sort of problem in the Nigerian economy. But away from unionization, there are other factors. There are other factors that aid or that influence pricing of commodities. You just mentioned the cost of petroleum products. That to an investor or to a producer or a farmer or whatever category of business you want to look at. So to that individual producing goods and providing services, the cost of production has increased. Because if for an instance, a trade that you used to pay, say like you want to travel from, bring your goods from Calabar to Akwa, if you were paying 3,000 and going back tomorrow, you are now asked to pay 5,000 or 6,000. Don't forget that business must be done at a profit. So the people that transports or conveys the goods from one point to the other will actually embed the increase of whatever factor of production, whether it is transportation, whether it is in product, or whether it is in taxation. That is why when government is coming up with policy, we should actually look at the impact, because policy on its own is not a one-way thing. It's a process. You have a policy demand, you have the policy performance, and you have the policy impact. And as it is always the case, it is the citizens that bear the impact of every policy, whether it is in form of increased taxation. It is the citizenry that bears the burden. Are you with me?
Yes, I'm with you.
I don't believe that there is any business person that will just sit down outside of unionization, which is what we should actually look at, which is what government should actually look at. So aside from that factor, other factors of production, other things that happen in the economy, in the society, also influences prices of goods.
Negligence. Could it be negligence on the part of the government?
Works the way it should work.
Can you hear me?
See that? Hello?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, would you say it's caused by negligence on the part of the government that creating an enabling environment for businesses to thrive? You mentioned having to be the sole provider of power supply for your business, and of course security as well. Why is it that so far we haven't been able to get this right? Would you say it's caused by negligence on the part of the government?
Well, I will submit to that school of thought. I will definitely submit to that school of thought, because in a situation you have an impact in the pricing of such goods. So if government should be responsible and responsive in providing basic amenities, in ensuring supervision where it is necessary. Are you there? Then things should be done the way it should be done. So everything that happens in the society, I think, is a question of how responsible and responsive the leadership will have each. So it's a function of leadership, it's a function of government policies and government actors.
Okay, thank you so much, Paulinus Peter. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you very much. It's always my pleasure.
All right, do have a great evening.
And you too. Thanks for having me once again.
Okay. All right, back to the people. We've been discussing, of course, price regulation and control here in Nigeria. And of course, we had Paulinus Peter, a socio-political analyst who in good policies and of course creating an enabling environment for Nigerians who are entrepreneurs to be able to thrive, and of course their businesses as well, as one of the factors that could actually help stabilize Nigeria's economy. Well, thank you so much for staying glued to your TV and being a part of the conversation. It's been the Law of the People and Governance, and this is the last edition for the week. Trust you had a good time with us. Well, we'll be coming your way again next week. Meanwhile, don't forget to follow us on social media and subscribe to our YouTube channel, all of which you can find on our website, SpectrumTv.ng, and also follow us on Twitter at SpectrumT Online, all as one word. My name is Rachel David White. Good evening.